Everyone, if you wouldn't mind, if you're in a place where you can turn on video so we can see you, that's great. But if you can mute yourself while we're chatting, it will just help with any background noise that comes in. Welcome to our Success Express workshop today on how to leverage interns to grow your organization. My name's Laura Zellman. I'm with my own company, Laura Zellman Marketing, and I am a member of our programs committee, and I'll help to facilitate our workshop this morning. The mission of the Quarter 9 495 Regional Chamber is to be a dynamic regional business organization striving to promote growth, prosperity, and quality of life for our members in our communities. And these workshops are one way in which we deliver professional development and value to our members. So as I said, if you are in a place to turn the video on, that's great. Also, if you could take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, what company you're with, maybe if you have used interns before or are looking to add them. It's a great way for us to network with each other, as well as for Amy to see some of those comments as she starts her presentation today. So before we get into that, I would like to take a moment to thank Berkshire Bank, who is the sponsor of our workshop series this year. Sonia couldn't be here today, our representative, so I'll tell you a little bit about Berkshire Bank. Berkshire Bank in Worcester is our sponsor. They're over a 176-year-old community bank with financial centers across New England and New York. Berkshire Bank is here to help and be your partner, whether it is to save money, buy a home, or help with business needs. And they're here to provide sound financial counsel and match the right solution for you. Through their multi-billion-dollar Best Community Comeback program, Berkshire Bank helps power economic potential by fueling small businesses like those of our chamber members and in our community. And because of Berkshire Bank, the chamber can offer these workshops to our members free of charge throughout the year. So we thank Berkshire Bank for their continued sponsorship. I want to make sure we have a lot of time to cover our topic today, so I'll introduce our presenter, Amy Mosher-Berry. Amy will tell you her voice is a little bit under the weather today, so we're going to turn up our volume and listen as she speaks. Amy is a fellow Corridor 9 495 Chamber member who started Visions internships in 2020 to make internships work for both organizations and young professionals. With over 20 years of experience in for-profit, nonprofit, government, and academia, Amy is deeply committed to providing busy organizational leaders with systems and support to succeed. As a certified project management professional, Amy holds a master's in community development and planning and a BA in environmental studies and Spanish. And I know from all sides of the internship process, we'll get a lot of great information from Amy today. So I will turn it over to her, and she will take it away.
Amazing. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Chamber, fellow members. Thank you to our sponsor, Berkshire Bank. Thank you guys for dealing with my voice. I canceled all of my meetings yesterday but one because I knew how important this webinar was and I wanted to show up live and get you all the goods. So thank you for being here. I know you have a million other places you could be and other things you could be doing. So as they said, please definitely drop your information in the chat. We'd love to meet and greet. I know we know a lot of each other, but definitely make sure to put yourself out there so that we can connect and help everybody here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, everybody. And you know, with these things, it's like, oh, this feels kind of formal, but just the way I operate, you guys, mandatory fun around here. So like, I'm like a Ben and Jerry's rule. Like if it's not fun, why do it? So if you have like a burning question and you need to like get it answered, just drop it in the chat. If one of the co-facilitators, Carlene and Laura, if you can just sort of like monitor that. I am very good with the impromptu facilitation. So we'll just roll with it and make it as valuable as possible for you. So you are here because you want something for yourself, and I totally get it. People tune into the WIFM, the What's in It for Me channel, so I completely understand. We're going to have you discover key concepts, pitfalls, common pitfalls, and best practices, most importantly, related to internships today. You may have noticed that internships, whatever you knew of internships before COVID, things are a little bit more the Wild West now. A lot of organizations, you know, maybe they had an internship in the past and it's sort of dissolved a little bit. They have a hard enough time keeping track of a lot of their, actual skilled, experienced, and paid staff that are either hybrid or virtual today since COVID. So the internships have kind of taken a back burner. And when people do have internships, it often feels like, okay, well, we can make the connection, but then there could be mutual disappointment if the right structures aren't in place. So I've just seen and heard enough to have developed a unique approach, and we have been running programs for about 3 years, and we learned a lot the first 2.5 years. And the last year or so, we've been pivoting to really more of a B2B service. So I think that's why it's a great audience for the chamber as well. And most importantly, I would say, guys, we're here live together. We're fellow chamber members. We're friends here. Like, this is your time to ask me any and all questions, because there's a lot of questions that we don't even realize we have. It's like what you don't know until you start to get into a conversation. They're like, oh yeah, what about that? Or I heard about this. Is that true? Just any and all questions. That's really the beauty of being live on the webinar together. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the facts are that most internships fail. Over 80% of internships fail. Why? Organizations, they feel, understandably, internships, while a great idea, they're too time consuming and they lack sufficient return on investment. And on the flip side, for interns, and I'll say by extension, their families, these interns, these young people, they want purposeful work. They want to do well for themselves and do good work in the world. So can you guys see my ampersand? So if employers are not hitting on both of those fronts, that understanding young people want to do well for themselves, but also do good work in the world, over 80% of young people today are looking for socially or environmentally conscious, purposeful work. So the employers need to understand that. It's something called the purpose gap. We'll get into more. And also interns, it's not working for them because they're often lacking the sufficient training and support that they need. They are not a regular W-2 or 1099. They are somebody who's in training. And that's something that truly distinguishes internships from jobs, is that, and this is something in a later slide, but just alert. The key differentiator here is that internships must prioritize the intern's learning. That's the core distinction, as opposed to the regular worker. So we'll get into a lot more detail. And this is where I hope you're going to have a little extra fun here. And I don't know if Mark is still there. So Mark, this is your big moment, actually. So some of you may know Mark from the chamber, Westboro, okay, friend of mine. And we were at a barbecue last summer. In full disclosure, you guys, it's so funny because he didn't know that this piece was happening this morning. But I needed like a great setup to do a little role play. So maybe I had my own Hollywood ambitions, but this is what it came down to. It's a 60-second piece, and I hope you enjoy. The question is, can you relate to this feeling that Mark and I, especially myself, being that very busy CEO or C-suite executive, loving the idea of interns, but then I'm feeling like, oh geez. So here we go.
Great news, Amy.
Oh.
We got you those 3 new interns that are gonna help get all this work off your plate.
Are you serious?
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like I just hit the lottery. Thank you so much. Oh my God, this is incredible. Wait, who are these young people? What do they even know? Are you going to train them? I need to train them and support them over time. What if I mess up? What if they mess up? Really, this is awesome, but I really can't take them. I'm not going to have time to work with these interns. But you know what? I'm going to bring this opportunity to the staff meeting on Friday, and we'll see who else can use the help. But thank you so much.
Okay, I guess. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Can anyone relate to that feeling? Feel free to take yourself off mute if anybody has a comment or wants to comment or ask anything before we move forward. Can you relate? If so, guys, you are definitely not alone, right? It's a great idea, but then like, oh my gosh, implementation. All right, moving along. So in terms of the problem, and when there's a problem, especially as entrepreneurs, there's always an opportunity right there behind it. So we know that on the organizational side, so leaders want project support, of course, they want access to talent, but they often lack the time to find, train, manage, and mentor interns solo. And there's a lot of, believe it or not, there are a lot of motivated young people that do in fact want meaningful real world experience, but they lack the industry awareness, skills, and support to succeed in most internships, right? It doesn't make them lazy. I think a lot of young people have gotten a bad rap, honestly, since COVID. So I do a lot of translating from what the employers are looking for to the young people, but also having the employers understand where the young people are coming from. A lot of them are extremely motivated. They just need that guidance and direction. So at the bottom here, it says forward-thinking organizations, perhaps like yours, can implement real win-win solutions with the right systems and support. So even if it's not a massive organization, you can still implement great solutions. We have, in full disclosure, and you guys know that I myself was a startup in 2020. I'm still small. I'm the only full-time person working for Visions internships. I have 3 part-time team members. But what we have learned is if you're just a startup, like a solopreneur only, it is a little difficult to implement a functional internship program because there's no one to delegate to. So that's something to just keep in mind. It's not impossible, but certain things need to be put in place. And again, we've learned a lot of these things over the years. So let's talk about what internships are, in fact, and what they are not. So oftentimes what they are not is even more important in a presentation like this. So first and foremost, internships are primarily work, training, and education. They are not a guaranteed job offer. This is great news for the job, we'll say for the employer who might be open to, in no way committed to, not obligated, especially guys in the state of Massachusetts, it's a little tricky to let go of the wrong employee, right? So an internship is a wonderful opportunity. It's like a runway. You discover the diamond in the rough, right? You have to try it before you buy it, but you are under absolutely no obligation as an employer to bring on an intern past the stated arrangement, which is typically a 10 or 12-week arrangement on average. Internships are a supported learning experience, okay? It's not a professional employment arrangement. Likewise, this needs to be a mutually beneficial exchange. And we'll talk a little bit more about, there are actually federal and state criteria that shape and define internships. We'll get to that. They are not a source of cheap so-called grunt work labor. And I know that sounds a little bit tongue-in-cheek, a little bit funny, but you guys know what I'm saying. Like, it's sort of like back in the day, people like, oh yeah, interns, like they're lucky if they're gonna like, make the copies and pour me coffee kind of thing. So since COVID, it's like, could be that, or it could be the virtual equivalent of just the grunt work, right? That if it's just grunt work and you need to pay somebody to get it done, it's probably more appropriate to be a part-time job because it's not a real learning and training component. Does that make sense? Okay. So internships are, in fact, they are ideally, so this is where I editorialize a little bit. Ideally, they are more short-term. They're not meant to be a long-term solution, at least with that particular intern. So they are ideally short-term. They are structured and ideally project-based. Now, as obviously a project management professional working a lot with young people, you guys know that interns come and go, projects start and stop. What a great match. They're not meant to be a long-term, unstructured, ongoing operational support. No bueno. That's not a good fit, okay? Internships are a great opportunity to have young people get a horizontal view across your organization. Where you guys remember gym class back in the day where you like went to the different stations and you got to like do the jump rope and the hula hoop and you did all the things and you're like, I like that, I don't love this. So more horizontal in nature are the best internship programs where yes, you're getting them involved in hopefully what are, it says at the bottom, what are important projects, but they may not be urgent, but what a great way to get them to see the different aspects of your business. It helps everyone, okay? It is not meant to be a vertical deep dive on just one department or one, initiative that goes on and on for the full 12 weeks. It could be that way, but it needs to be agreed upon. Okay, because interns are shopping around for what they're interested in, what they want more information about, the career direction they might want to go in. And you guys have all heard somebody say, and if you're a parent, you probably said something similar to your own child where it's like, you know what, this job doesn't have to be that where you're going to be for the rest of your life. I mean, how many people switch jobs all the time? but it could be a stepping stone, and it could also have you identify what you are not interested in, right? Kind of like dating. It's like you're shopping around. You don't have to marry the job or the person up front, okay? Give them the opportunity to check it out across the board. And the key takeaway here, as it says at the bottom, an internship, this is very important, my friends, whether it's paid or unpaid, and we will get to that. That's like the big elephant in the room question. What is distinct from a job is that the intern's learning is the core focus. That's what makes it so different measurably from a regular job. Anybody have any thoughts or questions about what internships are or are not? Is this helpful? Awesome. Okay, so a few more important concepts. We have like the internship ABCs. Have you guys heard people throw around internships? Oh, it's like an apprenticeship. That's like an apprenticeship, but it's actually not. Co-ops, like, oh, does the entire world have to go to Northeastern University to get real world experience? It's a great model. Can we actually extrapolate what works, or does it only stay there? So there's things that are working that we can do better, even as a very busy organization. There are models that will work better for you. Service learning, volunteering. Guys, I'm going to just pull up a quick document here. We're not going to go through all of it, but just FYI. And let me blow this up just a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but my eyes are not as great as they used to be. So the voice, the eyes. So let's focus on the internship. This is a form of experiential learning that integrates knowledge and theory. It's usually learned in the classroom. However, not all interns are active students. They don't have to all be students. In fact, there's something that you might want to be kind of hear this if this is helpful for your company. There's something called returnships that may not involve young people. It may involve perhaps stay-at-home parents that are coming back into the workplace, right? Typically part-time, could be three-quarter time, other. So there's a lot of different ways you could shape this, but keep in mind, it needs to have practical application and skill development in a professional setting. That's critical. It's usually connected to classroom learning, but it doesn't have to be. And there's something that if you're not aware of, an organization called NACE, it's the National Association of Colleges and Employers, a ton of great resources on that website. So just want to give you a reference. They're typically 12 weeks, sometimes 10 weeks. I would not go under 8-week internship because you need a little bit of a ramp up, right? There's a learning curve. There's some onboarding, which involves an orientation, some skills training and support, and you need enough of a runway for them to dig in and really learn something and also to add value to your company, okay? So typically think 12 weeks, give or take 10, 12 weeks. No more than like 3 to 6 months, and that may be if you're working with international students that sometimes works, or like a 6-month internship if they're here under a different status and it works mutually to have a 6-month. I've seen as much of a 10-month to like go along a whole calendar year for like a college. It happens, it's a little more rare. It could be 40 hours paid summer. It could be part-time paid or unpaid. We will get to this, you guys, but if you are especially a for-profit organization, which most members of the chamber would be, although not all, you really want to look at if it's 15 hours or more and you're for-profit and not paying, you want to take a look at that because it creates a social inequity issue where only wealthier kids can afford a more full-time internship that's unpaid, especially for a for-profit. So just keep that in mind, although it is legal not to pay interns as long as you're meeting criteria that we will go over a little bit later in this presentation. So I'm not going to read through, especially because of my voice, but the volunteering, the apprenticeship, the co-op, the service learning. But if you guys wanted to go back, this is being recorded. I just want to say something about apprenticeships, however, because I think apprenticeships are most commonly mixed up and used interchangeably with internships. So an apprenticeship is more of that vertical model. You guys remember we talked about internships are not typically more of a vertical model. An apprenticeship really is a more vertical deep dive where it's like that apprentice is probably in some sort of, whether it's a trade or manufacturing, construction, it could be IT, healthcare, finance, it could be any of these industries. but they're getting like more of that shadowing experience. They're really right there with their main mentor, their apprentice master, if you will, and they're working very closely. They're almost always full-time, and they're almost never not paid. So they're almost always paid. It's very rare to have an unpaid apprenticeship. Okay. So I hope that gives a little bit of a more clarity. And I think for sake that we talked about, time included, I'm going to move forward. But does anybody have any questions about this or comments about this slide? Okay. You guys, sometimes I break into professor mode every now and again, so bear with me, but I really am a business owner. I get it. So I'm going to try not to slip into that academic mode, but let's talk.
I do have
more.
one question.
Yeah,
Just,
Ed,
you
go
know,
ahead.
I'm assuming the pool for unpaid positions is probably pretty shallow, right?
You know, not exactly, because so many young people are desperate for real world experience.
Okay.
So you actually have, if it's well structured and part-time,
Yep.
and when I say well structured, I'm going to emphasize again that the majority benefit needs to go to the intern. That's actually laid
Yeah.
out in something from the Department of Labor, guys. I'll show you that in a little bit. It's called Fact Sheet 71. But there are specifications. As long as you're following that, it is an appealing, and it is sufficiently appealing to a lot of young people today. A lot of programs are not requiring internships. Even when they're requiring them, they're not necessarily supporting them. It's kind of like more of an independent proposition. And a lot of young people feel overwhelmed. They're trying to keep their grades up. By the time it's time for an internship, it's like, feels like it's too late, right? So it's just a matter of, I think, of connecting the right people. But you'd be surprised. There are more young people that are looking for, especially if it's part-time and unpaid. They do want that experience. And it is distinct from volunteering, right? Sometimes people also just say, oh, like I'll bring in some student volunteers. It's like, well, and I won't go back to that, but it's not a volunteership because it does need to be tied to specific skills or experiences that the intern is looking to gain. Whereas a volunteership, if you will, distinct from an internship, volunteering, it's a one-off. It's usually supporting a nonprofit or a community cause, right? And that person is like happy to help with no strings attached. It's not necessarily a learning objective. It's good service helping the world. So hopefully that's helpful. So, okay, guys, anybody wondered, does this have to be paid, or can it be unpaid? Well, full-time sounds great, but like, who's going to like oversee these young people full-time? Like maybe I don't want full-time, right? Full-time, part-time, is it in person? Is it virtual? Is it hybrid? So if you guys are thinking about internships, like, and I'm not even gonna go back pre-COVID because we really are in a new world, but it was very unusual to do virtual work, whether full-time or part-time. But now it's totally normal to have a hybrid type internships. I think are the best, because I wouldn't want to say, you guys, when I started my company, it was the height of COVID and there was no going in anywhere. So we were working, in fact, the name Visions came from Virtual Internship Solutions. That was the first name of my company. And then it became Visions for reasons we won't get into. My friend was like, you might want to add internships. They might think you're doing something with people's eyes. I'm like, yeah, good point. But it really is normal to have a hybrid internship solution. And I think it really, in most cases, there's always exceptions, it's the most mutually beneficial arrangement, because you don't have to have them with you all the time, right? No offense to the young people, but you also have them working on structured projects, but you do allow them to come in and meet and greet and hopefully see on site what's happening and meet other people in the company. It helps them too. And their parents will thank you. Okay, so academic credit or non-credit, let me say something about this. So academic credit. Some people say, oh, no problem. I'll just sign whatever the papers are and get them academic credit. Like I don't need to pay them. Totally understand that, my friends, but let me give you another perspective on that. Just be careful about that. Most internships, especially if they're the more full-time internships, are going to happen when? Summer, right? So if they're happening over the summer, are most young people, let's say those that are actively enrolled in college, are most people enrolled in college full-time over the summer? No, that's why they're available. But the problem is you've got to figure out a way, if you're going to go for credits, especially in place of payment, you need to understand that those young people are going to need to pay out of pocket to get those internship credits because they're not considered a full-time student in the summer. So don't just assume they're going to say, oh, great, I'll get the credits instead. They have to pay out of pocket, sometimes $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 out of pocket to get that internship credit applied to the summer semester. And it's rare that schools will work to do like a prior spring before the work has been done. Couple times I've seen it done early fall that they can get those credits applied to an independent study or something, but don't assume that, okay? So just be aware of that and understand their world. The purpose gap, we already basically talked about, you guys, but I did write something, I think this was last year, in the Worcester Business Journal. So this is a piece that I did. I wanted to pull up a few things. So these are 5 things that I know about regarding attracting and retaining today's young professionals. So they are looking for ideally a paycheck with a purpose. Again, there's a little caveat there with the internship, so long as it's a majority training and education focus. But as I said, there was a study done in 2019 pre-COVID that 80% of today's college graduates are looking for work that helps people or planet. So if you're not doing anything to help people or planet, or you're not being explicit about that, a lot of these young people, even with expensive degrees that they're now trying to figure out their debt payoff, are going to revert to other jobs. They want to make sure that the employers are caring about people and caring about planet. Now, guys, I know we all do that, but they don't necessarily know what you do to help make this world a brighter place. They want to know what you do so that they'll be attracted and want to stay there. That's the purpose gap. If you're missing the purpose gap, you're probably missing a lot of young people today. Is that the first time you guys have heard of that concept? No. Okay. So it's definitely something that it's like we know about, but like they are making decisions based on it. So you may know it, they may know it, but it needs to be communicated when you're hiring, bringing them on. And we don't want just young people to cycle in and cycle out, guys, especially let's say you do end up bringing on a young person, whether they've come in as an intern or other. You don't want them cycling out in 6 months. That's a huge headache, right? If they're the right person, you want to make sure that you keep them in. It's just too much effort, time, energy, money. So you want to be clear and supportive with your young people, right? You want to give them specific directions. And you want to make sure that they have the ongoing support to succeed. So you want to have those shorter feedback loops, especially with interns, that they have an opportunity to meet and chat with you and check in and ask for your help and support, because otherwise they feel like they should know everything and they may not ask. One of the most, this is sort of ironic and it's a very good insight, especially for the young people, but a lot of young people are not asking questions. Like they think they're supposed to know everything. And you guys, we know. How many questions did we have when we were first starting out? It's like, we need to make sure that you can be approached and they're more than, it's very encouraged and you believe that to be valuable for them to ask you questions. So that's something that you want to definitely instill in your young people, whether they come in as interns or new hires. Using consistent systems that they can easily become a part of, making sure that you're initiating regular communication. They want to be in communication. Now, they communicate a little differently. Their norms of communication are a little bit different, but you've got to make sure you set up regular communication that works for both of you, okay? And then ideally, you're offering some kind of fair compensation with growth. When it comes to, again, whether it's interns or young people, they're looking to grow. So if you can share with them what the future could hold, not that you're making them any lifelong promises, but they like to get excited about what's coming. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Let me go back to presentation mode. And I'm going to take a sip of my honey tea. Bear with me. Okay, amazing. So the doing well and doing good, I can't emphasize it enough. Please don't miss this boat. Okay. CSR, corporate social responsibility. You guys, you probably even have on your company website some statement of corporate social responsibility, or at minimum, some sort of a DEI statement, diversity, equity, inclusion, right? Young people want to know what you stand for so that they can align their values. What are some types of internships? Oftentimes, especially in the hybrid internship role, you might be looking at research and analysis, some sort of communication, outreach, marketing, social media is huge, web support, some sort of process improvement. A lot of young people love to be challenged within, like, analyzing, documenting, and suggesting improvements on a process. That's a great learning experience that could also add value to your company. And then think as a hint at the bottom, what are some important projects that have been backburnered because they're simply not urgent? Like, they're important, otherwise you wouldn't still be thinking about them, but they're not so urgent, otherwise you would have done them already, right? Those are great segues to get in and get an intern plugged in to help you with that. So 8, 10, 12-week project sprint. It's a great match. Can anybody just maybe take yourself off mute? Tell me an example, and especially, I know, guys, I haven't been able to look in the chat too much. Has anybody sort of worked with interns before, or you're thinking about working with interns, and maybe you have a couple ideas for a project, or maybe you've done something in the past that worked well or didn't work well? If we can just hear from you amazing people here, I would love to hear your feedback before we move forward.
Hi, Amy.
Hey, Tom, good to see you. Thanks for your note.
Yeah, thank you for putting this on. At Northwestern Mutual, we pride ourselves on our internship program. I was a college intern 43 years ago at University of Massachusetts, and just everything you're saying is spot on. And we find that the interns are kind of a lifeline to our organization, because once they're in and we have them do the work, meeting with clients and developing cases, and we have mentors to work with them. But it's amazing, once they're in, they become fantastic financial advisors. So I can't imagine not using interns. They're imperative. And look at me, 43 years later, it worked.
Look at you, Tom. That's awesome. Thank you for that testimonial. Thank you.
Amy, I have another testimonial to offer.
Okay.
I'm with the SCORE organization that nationwide there are about 10,000 people who give back at the end of professional careers. Most of them, there are some still working, but we give free advice to any small business, and we find that to be very helpful and welcome. I'm involved with the Worcester County chapter, and as you can imagine, we have a lot of people who are happy to mentor individual business owners, but we don't have a lot of people who are willing to do other things. And although the national organization provides a very good website, we have the ability to localize all of these individual chapters. And we found 2 years ago that we looked pretty lame compared to a number of the other chapters. And so we identified through Amy's help the opportunity for an internship to basically have someone over a few months take a look at which other chapters were doing the best job on their localized options and helping us improve ours so that we became one of the best looking chapters, and so that people in our area would be prompted to find us and ask for advice. And I would say we had a wonderful project. She provided us with a wonderful intern, and he came at the end and made a presentation, and we accepted all of his improvements. And from his standpoint, I guess the benefits are he was working for an organization that's giving back to help others, but I'm certain that it improves and helps his resume to be able to say that he provided, website and social media improvements for a nationwide organization, well-known, SCORE. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad that worked out, Pete. Okay, guys, we're going to move forward, but I would love to continue to hear you guys throughout the presentation today. So, I know we wrap up. Let's see, what do you have about, is it, Carlene? 25 minutes total, including questions, correct? Okay. All right, good. So let's keep moving. And I want you guys to see, can you relate to this guy who's like, looking up at the 5 T's that we did develop this based on a lot of feedback from clients. So common concerns and frequently asked questions about working with interns. Number 1, talent. How do we find the right people? 2, training. Like, how would we even utilize these interns and train them to work with us? The team, this is key. Who on our staff would be able to supervise them? The tech, so this is twofold. What requirements? I'm talking, there's federal and state requirements that we will get to in a moment, but also systems, like what systems you're going to be plugging them into, what's required for them to be able to work with, smoothly with your organization. And then this is like the big one, number 5, is turnover. So the model of internships is that it is going to be a turnover model, but how can we minimize any negative impact associated with the inevitable turnover? So how can we create long-term success where one set of interns can pass the torch smoothly to the next, where there's a program behind the individual projects? That's what we really learned was missing. Okay, moving along. So guys, this is one of those terrible slides, like you don't even want to look at it, but I just needed to kind of sum it all up, and I have some talking points and things I'm going to be clicking on. So bear with me. Don't do this at home. So number 1, these are some best practices and also pitfalls, okay? So you really need to know your own primary motivation and the goals behind even having an internship program. And that's going to be a little different for everybody. But, first and foremost, are you somebody who's more motivated by regular short-term project needs? Or is it more of like a long-term talent pipeline development strategy? It's usually a little of both, but like figure out what is your primary motivation. And you also want to align your program with your organization's mission, vision, and values. And this is where I'm sure Allison Chisholm could do a whole additional thing on this, right? But you never want to develop any program, I don't care if it's an internship program or any new program, that's out of alignment or disconnected from your own company's mission, vision, values. Right, Allison? So
Thank you, Amy. Yes, that is so true.
so true. So definitely talk to Allison for more on that. But this is something where, your programs, they need to get you where you want to go. You don't want to start a program that's going to send you in a different direction. And then it's just more work, time, energy, money. Who has time for that? Nobody. All right. Number 2, I've mentioned this a few times, but I want to click on this link for you guys and let me know if you want. We can do some maybe clickable resource links, Carlene, in the follow-up email if you like. Fact sheet number 71 is something that you all want to know about. This is the United States Department of Labor. It's through their Fair Labor Standards Act. And you want to make sure you are heeding this, that you even know it exists, okay? So this is a test that the federal government has put forth. It was last updated in 2018. They revise it every few years. But this is especially relevant for unpaid interns and students. So you need to actually pass this primary beneficiary test, especially if you are a for-profit that's not going to be paying your interns. This is where you have to make sure you're following these guidelines. They're a little more lenient with nonprofits. It's still very good professional practice to know what this is. It doesn't really matter, in my view, that it's a nonprofit. It still has a certain experience for you and the young person. So bottom line, guys, without going into all of this and too much today, you can see the link after. But if you got nothing more from this emphasis on fact sheet 71, the internship program legally has to be a majority benefit to the intern, at least to start. There obviously has to be a return on investment to you or you wouldn't do it. And that's where I think, I come in because I'm bringing that more of that B2B view. But you've got to make sure you're building in specific skills and experiences that they're going to gain and that they have some form of structured support and mentorship to succeed. Okay, so there you have it. Hold on, we're not quite done. Hint is to make sure the internship benefits the interns more than your company to start. Right? And then all things are possible. But just make sure of that. You guys know that every state has its own sort of statewide Department of Labor department in each state. So in Massachusetts, there is the workforce department here that actually, they basically typically take the federal standard and they default to that unless something otherwise stated on the state website. So you can obviously go to, mass.gov for a lot more information about Massachusetts, but it's pretty much in line with the federal here in Mass. You want to have clear job descriptions and learning objectives. So something that makes a job description a little different for an intern is that you have stated learning objectives and benefits that the internship is going to provide them with specific training, specific opportunities, with the intern's interest in mind. And then something that I like to advise our members is, like, our organizations that we're helping set up and run these internship programs, is that, you know, you want to have a job description, but then you want to convert it into a signed offer letter. You guys know that somebody's accepted to a job, but like the young person needs to really see, ideally in person, what they're agreeing to, convert it into a basic offer letter, make sure they sign it almost instead of a contract. Some organizations do a best practice for their HR. They do prefer interns still sign sort of an employment contract, but oftentimes, because it's a little bit more casual, you can just convert that job description into an offer letter that you discuss and you sign, and that can prompt them, you know, starting off their onboarding and orientation, all that good stuff. Please do not overlook the interview process. Oh, they're only interns. I'll just bring in my cousin's friend. It's not going to go well. Okay, you've got to make it a little bit more formalized. Make sure you're at least having one interview. And you want to come up with some questions that are going to get you the kind of people that you want interning for you. Right? Sort of like a reverse engineer. And some of these guys, they may not be so far off from some of your regular interview questions if you're bringing on a W-2 or 1099, but keep in mind the learning of the young person and kind of have a short 5 to 10 set of questions that you know are going to bring in the right people. And people can tell people, and oftentimes once you get it posted, people can share it and you'll have a flow of people. Also depends on when you post this stuff, right? You have to kind of be aware of when more people are available. Number 5 is orientation, onboarding, and ongoing training and mentorship is needed. So I love the rule of thumb where I love to lead people and manage projects. I don't personally love the emphasis on managing people. Most people don't like to be, quote, managed passively. You guys, when I was in local government, I worked for the city of Worcester for almost 6 years, and I was that entrepreneur in the government cube that was like, can we not call our people cases to be managed? Can we not be case managers? Can we actually, you know, bring the entrepreneurial approach? And so you can imagine the conversations that I had then. But think of what can open up when you lead people, when you lead young people. They see you as a role model. They're inspired by who you are, right? When they're inspired by who you are as a human being, they're going to do what you want them to do. If they're not inspired by who you are as a way of being, remember, we're human beings before we're human doings. So if you jump right into the doing, especially with young people, you might lose them. So lead people, manage projects. Okay. And this is something else, again, maybe for sake of time, Carlene, I can just put these in the follow-up, but this is something that you guys want to look at too, is like ways to soak. I use the language manage your interns effectively because that's the lingo out there, but keep in mind what I said earlier about this. So to expand your talent pool, which kind of gets back at Ed's question, you might want to think of decreasing the number of required hours per week, especially if it's an unpaid internship, to eliminate the concern that only rich kids can afford to do unpaid internships that are essentially full-time. That's where that 15 hours or less part-time, if it's unpaid and you're meeting those criteria, you're good. But 15 or more, like that 15 number for me, and you guys, some people disagree. Some people say 20. I just feel like you just want to be mindful of what you're asking young people to do for free. It is still a huge benefit for them to learn from you. And you want to make sure that pool is open to as many talented young people as possible. You want to provide dedicated mentors, we already talked about. And again, I emphasize the infamous purpose gap, okay? So I'm coming back to the crazy slide. The crazy slide is making a comeback. Okay, at the end of the program, I would strongly encourage you to have them do mini presentations, not just like an academic presentation, like here's what I learned and I'm getting credit for it. It's not that. It's about showcasing what they've done to add value to your organization. And what does that become for them? They get to add that to their professional portfolio. So the next time they go interview, guess what? With your permission, they have a mini presentation, right? Hopefully it's recorded, that they can pass on to somebody who's planning on bringing them in for that full-time paid role. Isn't that great? I love that. So it's a great best practice. Do you guys, I'm so funny. I'm like, isn't that great? I think it's great. That's one of my favorites though. I just wanted to, I just heard myself say that and I had to laugh. Okay. So this definitely benefits the host site, and also current interns, that will be moving on for interviews, but also you guys, future interns can watch previous interns' mini presentations as part of their onboarding. And then you can easily pass the torch. We're not always starting from ground zero. Okay, so these are great best practices, if I could humbly say so myself. So number 7 is you want to do both a pre-internship and a post-internship evaluation. Highly recommended. Why? It's such an easy way to capture the baseline, where they at and where do they want to be, right? And then your work with them over that 10, 12-week period is going to achieve that gap. It's going to close that skill gap, that experience gap. They said they wanted, they didn't know what this key term was, and now they do, and they can apply that skill in the real world. So some form, just keep it brief. 3-5 questions beforehand, right? What do you want them to know? What do they know? And then what did they learn? And they feel so much more confident about themselves. They can really speak to skills and experiences gained. It helps everybody. Okay, the biggest pitfalls would include unclear goals, no clear goal about why the heck I'm even having these interns come in. Oh, can I just bring in 1 or 2 great interns? Oh, Amy, can you just hook me up with a couple of interns? You guys, all the time, I literally turn that request down now. I'm obsessed with connecting people and opportunities, but I know enough at this point that if I just connect you with an intern, I am not doing my due diligence. So I've actually stopped just connecting people. We need to make sure it works for both the site orgs and the young people. You got to have clear goals. You got to have clear key performance indicators. How are you measuring the intern's success? So it's like a 2-prong KPI. It's how are you measuring the key performance indicator of your overall internship program? And PS, try not to have just one intern only at a time. There could be one intern focusing on a certain project like Pete talked about, but it's better to bring in 2 or more. That 2 to 4 intern at a time is a sweet spot because then they can work and grow together. You guys, I'm the mother of an only child, and during COVID, don't I wish I had a second kid, right? That they could just do their thing together. Thank God my friend allowed us in her bubble. She has 4 children, and we were able to play in the sandbox. But I'm telling you, if it's just you and the one intern, it's a lot of unnecessary additional work on you where they could be working together, collaborating to move the project forward. Okay. If you're lacking like all systems and you have no standard operating procedures, or you're assuming that interns are going to know what to do, and in parentheses, my friends, most importantly, you're assuming that they know what to do, but also how you want them to do it. And you want to model what you want them to do. So you want to demonstrate before you delegate. You want to show them, don't just tell them. Show them, demonstrate before you delegate, especially to interns. This is also a good practice for early career new hires. And the infamous, can I just bring in one intern? Not advised. Like, you got to have the pieces in place. It's not as casual as it may appear. Okay. So I hope that slide was helpful. So if you guys are wondering, how the heck do I know if an internship program might make sense for my organization, right? Your organization, the person in your seat, in your shoes. So let's look at this. And it's not necessarily linear, okay? Just for sake of presentation. Number 1, it says that you notice yourself needing frequent project support. Especially it's like, oh, that same kind of thing that I need all the time. Can anybody give an example? What's that thing you need help with all the time? If you just had a couple interns, you'd have them do what?
Website stuff. For me, it'd be building websites and that kind of stuff, the back end stuff that just takes time.
Totally. And it comes up all the time. Some of that stuff is a special project where it might start, stop. It might not be a repeat thing. But you guys want to think about especially like repeat, frequent project support needs that you have. What is it? Okay. Now, number 2 says, well, you know what? Our organization has been talking about building a talent pipeline. It's like important, but it's not the most urgent thing, but we need it. And there's certain pathways. Like I was working with a member recently. They need these auditor assistants all the time. And they're like, well, we could just keep, doing interns that start, stop, come, go. But what if we actually designed an internship program that was a feeder program so that they could become auditor assistants and we don't have to constantly be wondering, and then they could utilize more short-term internship models for another thing that they need done, okay? How about anybody prefer to hire from within when possible? Right? Most people do. Most people hire people that are either like them or they like, right? People they know, like, and trust. You prefer to hire within. Again, you're under no legal obligation to hire that intern unless it's stated and agreed to, but you can try it before you buy it. It's a performance-based world. Wow, we might grab that intern before they move on and get another job. So it's a great opportunity to hire from within if that's an important strategy for you. If you believe that training and supporting new talent is truly important and you're actually committed to it, like you actually have resources, AKA a human being who's paid to support new hires. If you believe, like, if that's a real value for you, it's probably a good match. And if you're open to new processes and ideas, because for a lot of you guys, even if you had an internship program in the past, or you yourself were an intern, or you were involved in an internship program, past employer, like, people are doing things differently now. So you need to be open to new processes and new ideas, including the ideas of your future interns. They love giving you ideas if you give them that open runway. If you're too closed and it's too like micromanaged, they're not going to feel as creative or encouraged. And that I would assert, again, being an entrepreneur who's worked with a ton of young people, it's amazing to see them light up when you give them that trust and belief that they can actually offer value. They can maybe solve a problem for you. Maybe you didn't come up with it, but they could actually tackle a challenge because you didn't have the time and you were open, you were excited. On Friday, you're going to hear about their top 3 ideas. They love it. Okay?
Amy, we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. I needed the hook. Thank you, Laura. So guys, just so you know what we provide, and this is not an official pitch, but just because it is helpful to know, well, what the heck do you do? Being in business, you guys know I'm part of the Quarter 9 495 with all of y'all. I see at some of the networking events. I wish I could go to more, but just FYI, these are our basic services. Please contact me if you want more information. We do have an Internship Insider membership that's actually a virtual membership to help busy organizational leaders set up and run their own internship programs. We open that membership twice a year. It's opening July 24th. We have an additional piece I won't get into. It's like help you not only set up the program, but help you keep your interns on track. We can help you with that. We also do customized training, speaking, or consulting coaching services for organizations. And if you know any young people, we do have programs every April and October to help them get the skills and support to succeed in this crazy work world. We do have a career and leadership conference coming up for young people between 18 and 29 years old. It is in person, you guys. I have not taught young people or trained young people in person since 2019 before COVID, when I left teaching college. I am over the moon that this is going to be in person. So let me know if you guys want more information about that. And we also have individual career coaching. We do bring both of our key audiences together through virtual networking events twice a year. And one is coming up on Thursday, May 30th. If you guys want information, I am making that one just available. It's a free thing. It's just going to be fun. And, let's see what people want, need, what you're interested in, to try to connect you with other people who are interested in maybe developing internship programs, or other actual young people. So let me know if you're interested in what you need there. And then just the last, 8 minutes or so for any questions, any and all questions that you have. I would love, before we go into questions, if you guys could, and if you want to take yourselves off mute, if you want to ask really anything, but maybe also what about this entire presentation stood out to you first as most useful? What was a golden nugget that you think you'll take away, that you feel like you got some value today? If we could start there.
I think it was the purpose, Amy, when you were talking about the purpose of the internship. When you bring someone in not having a plan or something around them is pointless. And I think that's where a lot of people are at. They want help, they're just screaming for help, but if you bring the help in, they don't want to spend the 10 minutes to train the help. So then there's no point in having the help at that point. So if you don't have the bandwidth to bring someone on, it takes longer to train someone sometimes than to do it yourself. But if you don't train someone, you never get out of the cycle. So it's kind of
Absolutely.
out of your own way.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I just want to clarify too, and I see questions. Thank you guys so much for participating in the questions. I'll be right with you. So the program that Pete had Pete, we were still doing that we were doing it for you basically. Now we've decided, oh my gosh, that's completely unsustainable. We've got to be working with between 2 and 4 people inside of an organization to help them build their own program, get their own interns. It's not Amy's program and Amy's interns. That was a big mistake, but we live and learn. Thank God I'm still standing. So Nina and then Allison. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for clarifying too, like the different aspects and maybe like mishaps of or misconceptions. That's the word I'm looking for, between like internship, volunteering, and apprenticeship, and all these all those key terms. I did like the golden nuggets. I dropped it in the chat about like leading people and managing projects. That was really good. Just in terms of mindset on how to go about this, right? My question would be just more so, and maybe it's more of a conversation for later, is I did find intriguing the concept of returnship and people that are returning into the workforce, maybe retirees, work at home moms, like you said. So hadn't considered that, but I that just the light bulb hit that there's opportunity there. And yeah, so whether here or a side conversation, that's another thing to maybe dive into. Thanks.
Awesome. And Nina, what's your business real quick? Especially if you guys are, say what, just make sure you introduce yourself so we know to follow up with you. Nina, what's your business again?
I apologize. Nina
no
from
problem.
EFM Business Solutions, and we focus primarily on bookkeeping and marketing, but basically any solutions that small businesses need to get them growing.
Amazing. I'm so glad I asked. Thank you. And Allison.
I just loved the what not to do. It really made me rethink what's in it for the intern first versus what's in it for the company. Because I think I'd started with what are the tasks, what needs doing, as opposed to what it is that they need to learn. And that is, again, a mindset shift. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Great feedback. Did you guys hear? I'm like actually losing my voice. Thank you, Allison. I love that. Amazing.
Want to have 1 or 2 more questions before we wrap up this morning? Tom, are you waving there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say again, you're spot on. Having multiple interns is imperative because they work off each other and they talk and they see the success of each other. And I think the camaraderie aspect of that is incredibly important. I think if it was a one-off, it just wouldn't work. The pressure is too great.
Totally. And it's unnecessary. It sort of backfires, especially to that you're already so busy in your own work day to day. Now and you don't want to feel badly. You don't want to be resentful toward your intern. You want them to feel like they can approach you, but it needs to be structured. Send me an email on Wednesdays and Fridays at 3 p.m. with this subject line. And they're like, okay, got it. So that they're not constantly, quote, bugging you because they have so much to offer. Sarah, I don't actually know what your business is. If you wouldn't mind just saying hello, I'm not sure I can see it in the chat. I just want to make sure I say hello and you get a chance to share you. And then Priya, I know you, Priya, but I would love for you to just say who you are and what you do quickly for the rest of the people as well. And
so
hi.
My business is, I'm an aging life care manager. So
Okay.
we work with people who are aging, living with chronic illness. We support them in creating the best quality of life possible. We do assessments, advocacy, we take them to appointments, we have a sub-program of individualized engagement, sort of very full and individualized service. Thank you.
Thank you for the work you do. My mother was in hospice and passed in December, and the work that you all do in that arena is literally priceless. Angels, you're doing the work of the angels. So thank you so much. Priya, if you want to say anything quickly, or I know Rebecca just joined, but otherwise I think we're at time, and thank you so much for having me. But Priya, Rebecca, you good?
My name is Priya. I do branding and websites for service-based businesses. So today I had a question. So if I'm thinking to hire a part-time paid intern, what is the expectation on minimum hours weekly? And what is the minimum hourly wage who sets the wage, and how do I report this on my taxes?
That's great. And that is definitely going to take us after the time. So I feel like, Carlene, I don't want to go over, but it's 10:31. So Priya, can you shoot me that exact question and I will make sure I answer that, because that's very good. It's mainly state of Massachusetts. You get to say it's more, but I don't want to rush the answer. So if you can just put that in a question, and I want to be done. I'm going to put myself on mute. I want to thank Carlene, Laura, and the chamber and everybody here today. This was really fulfilling for me. I appreciate you all, and I hope to be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I know this was a lot of great information. I think, even as we do our own work, it's really important to think about doing well and doing good with what we do, as you said. So purposeful for yourself, purposeful for the world. I think that as we, small business owners or, working in an organization look to make a difference, those are sort of key points we can pull about what we do in our business that satisfies those things. Before we wrap up today, I just want to let you know that you will get an email from us, from Carlene, that has the video recording link. It will have some of those articles and links that Amy mentioned, and it will have a survey. It's a quick few question survey to ask about the webinar today. It's helpful for the presenters and for the programs committee as we plan ahead, and we'll also ask for topics of interest for future webinars. And then I'll quickly say the chamber has a lot coming up in June. We have a few ribbon cuttings coming up for new businesses. We have our annual meeting on June 7th, which is a great breakfast event. We have a BFF, our Business Forward Females Lunch, and we have a golf tournament. So a little bit of everything, inside, outside, formal, informal. So if you check the chamber website, you'll be able to see all of those things coming up. So thank you for joining us today, and hope you have a great day and stay cool out there.
Thanks all.
All right.